Now, the Commission is making a bid to try and salvage Europe's summer tourist season. It's revealed a plan that will gradually open borders for millions of eager holidaymakers. The proposals would see restrictions gradually being lifted in unison across all member states. Our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, has this report.
All parked up with nowhere to go. Despite the easing of confinement restrictions across much of Europe, most planes remain grounded, beaches closed and restaurants shut. The summer holiday remains a dream, but a dream the EU seems determined to turn into reality.
Our thoughts are now, I think, turning to summer and maybe even further, and to the places that we love to travel. That be by the sea, the mountains, our cities and our countryside. And those places, they are keen to welcome back travellers. Tourism is a vital part of Europe's economy. Nearly a tenth of GDP across Europe and more than 10% in 11 member states.
Under the plans, the European Commission recommends a common approach to lifting restrictions on the free movement of people, the gradual re-establishment of transport while ensuring social distancing, make travel vouchers more attractive, but refunds must be honoured, and gradually and safely restoring tourism on beaches and in hotels. However, countries should consider allowing only travel from member states with similar outbreak levels and that there is good hospital capacity, as well as contact tracing. Ultimately, though, these decisions will be made at national level.
We cannot prescribe when country A, for example, or B decides to open up for tourism. Member states will progressively lift border restrictions. This will happen gradually and not all at once. That reflects the different situation, of course, in each of our countries, and we need to accept it.
Overall, welcome news from a tourism industry keen to get started again.
Obviously, this summer, the tourist season is crucial for, jobs of millions of people. And the same goes for the airlines business. We're a major contributor to the European economy. And yes, I mean, one can only hope that member states, are sensible enough to talk to each other in advance of them taking certain measures.
The prospect of Germans on Greek beaches or Finns in French vineyards took a step closer today. But the virus spread is unpredictable. Many will feel now is simply not the time to travel. Certainly this summer will not be like any other we've seen before. Darren McCaffrey, EURONEWS in Brussels.
Well, for more on this, we can speak now to the European Commissioner for Home Affairs, YLVA's JOHANSSON. She's one of the bloc leaders who worked extensively on this proposal, and she joins us from Brussels. Well, thanks for taking time to speak to us here on the programme. Let me begin by asking you about this phase one, which involves lifting restrictions and border controls in a unified way across the bloc. Given how the virus has spread and affected different countries, wouldn't it be better to come up with something which is more tailor-made?
This is tailor-made, and every member state have to assess the situation on the pandemic and for their healthcare capacity and also for the measures to social distancing. And from that, they will assess whether it's the right time to lift the restrictions on internal borders. But must remember that not all member states had introduced this internal border checks. But what we would like to avoid is a situation similar to when they introduced these border restrictions, because that caused a lot of chaos, actually, that put a lot of energy into making it in an orderly way. So now we would like to do it in a more coordinated way.
Yeah, you mentioned there chaos, and I can perhaps see the potentially chaotic situation in the future. You've said today that countries will not be able to block entry from their own citizens, but Italians living abroad are not going to be able to return home for holidays, perhaps only in emergencies. So how are you going to enforce such measures?
Well, I don't think that we need to enforce. I think I'm in close contact with ministers. We have video conferences every week, actually. So we are having a very good cooperation, and they are asking for this guidelines that we now present. And we all know that this virus is is a new one. Europe is in the deepest recession we ever seen in the European Union, and we have a virus that we know something about, but we don't know everything, and we are learning new things every week from this virus. That's why it's so important to have this do things step by step and to assess the situation and to measure how things are going and be ready also to take a step back if necessary. But I would like to do this in a coordinated manner, and the answer I got from member states is overwhelmingly this is what they would like to do.
We've spoken a lot today about the potential of the Baltic countries perhaps setting up a bubble, or other countries such as the UK, Ireland and France considering setting up a separate travel corridor. Are you concerned that that could create a scenario where non-Schengen countries could access more European countries?
No, it's not possible to set up an open border just for some nationalities. So this is very, very clear. And this is also in the directive that every member state that open up for their internal borders, they have to open it up for all EU citizens. They are not allowed to make distinctions or discrimination according to between different EU passports. So if a border is opened, then all EU nationals can pass through that border.
Okay. Just before we let you go, I just want to ask you a question that we've received here several times today. We've been talking and discussing travel. You've had millions of people who've spent hundreds, sometimes thousands of euros on travel plans, not only for this year, and of course, many airlines are refusing to reimburse that money. What are you going to do about sort of enforcing that?
Well, it's the member state that have to reinforce that travelers are being reimbursed from airline companies or other companies when they have cancelled their traveling. And this is, of course, essential for the consumers' rights. What we also presented today is some guidance also on how they can reimburse them in different ways. For example, by offering attractive vouchers instead. But they have the right to be reimbursed, and this is the fundamental right for the consumers, and we will stick to that.
YLVA Johansson, European Home Affairs Commissioner, thanks for joining us here on the programme.